Today on Carolina Catholic Digest.
We've been blessed actually in North Carolina to have some local events. Not all the states have that, and we're not even that Catholic of a state, number-wise.
Deacon Josh Klickman shares what you need to know about this year's March for Life.
We really want to expand how many homes we're able to work on and get these families that some have been waiting 4 or 5 years now since Hurricane Matthew, and we expect the same kind of length, if not longer, for some of the Hurricane Florence families.
And Daniel Altano invites you to take part in an unforgettable and constructive service project. All that plus this month's Catholic headlines for January 2021. Carolina Catholic Digest starts now.
Catholic radio news for Eastern and Central North Carolina. From the broadcast studios of the Catholic Diocese of Raleigh, this is Carolina Catholic Digest.
Hello and welcome to Carolina Catholic Digest for January 2021. I'm Mandy Howard. It's a new year, and I feel a renewed sense of gratitude to be able to share Catholic news with you. Like Bishop said in December's interview, it never seems like the news that we turn on is good news, but here we get to talk about beautiful things happening in the diocese, and I get to talk with wonderful people of great faith. Today we talk with Deacon Josh Klickman, the Human Life and Dignity Coordinator for the diocese. He shares a little bit about his responsibilities in that role and shares some information about the upcoming March for Life. Also, Daniel Altano from Catholic Charities sends us all an invitation to help fix homes for our neighbors in Eastern North Carolina. First, though, a look at recent Catholic headlines. Here's Carolina Catholic Digest's Mark Height.
Thanks, Mandy. Catholic Schools Week this year is January 31st to February 6th. Leisha Reese, Superintendent of the Office of Education, has more.
We celebrate Catholic Schools Week because it really gives our schools an opportunity to highlight what makes them special. This year's theme for Catholic Schools Week is faith, excellence, and service. Faith, our schools focus on individual prayer life, community prayer life. We celebrate the Mass, we celebrate feast days, and our students really have an opportunity to develop a relationship with Christ individually and also through their community. Of course, it's a school, so our focus on academic excellence is certainly there. Our teachers have done a phenomenal job throughout the pandemic, serving both our in-person and our remote distance learning students. And they've been really able to marry those two and provide an excellent Catholic school education for our students. And of course, last but not least, our students have the opportunity to serve their community in different ways, both through service projects organized by the school and also through service opportunities through their parish.
Watch for news and video highlighting our Catholic schools, including a classroom conversation between Reese and Bishop Luis Raphael. In that conversation, Bishop had a special message for the students and parents at our schools.
And I like to thank to the students who are in our schools for the joy that you bring us to our diocese and the hope that you are for us. The hope for today because of your presence, and the hope for the future because what you will bring to the church and society in the future. You are a beautiful blessing for all of us. And the parents, remember something. You are the first teachers of your children. We will support you. But remember that in your vocation, your first missions is to become the first teachers of your students. May God bless you.
RaleighDiocese.org has a useful new tool where users can search for Mass times, confession, and adoration opportunities. Web manager Michelle King was instrumental in creating this innovative function for the diocese.
Before the pandemic, we had already been developing some adoration resources, and that included a directory of adoration locations and times across the diocese. So our developers had already built us like a scheduling interface where we could put that information. And then almost as soon as we got that capability, COVID hit, everything got canceled. The need became, we needed to connect people with online resources, like where you can stream Mass. And initially we just had our COVID resources page just had a listing it was just a page with here's some links to places in the diocese that are streaming Mass. And as more and more, initially there weren't very many parishes that were doing that, but then as more and more of them started offering it, the list got long, it became difficult to find anything. We didn't quite have a good way to organize it to help people look for Mass at a particular time or at a particular parish and where they could find the links. So what we did is went back to that directory we had built for the adoration resources, and we started putting in Mass times. And we built that out. It took a little while to do because we have 116 parishes. As of the first of the year, we have 63 of them represented in the new tool. So not everybody's there, but there's a lot there. So people who are looking for Mass at a particular time, you can use the new tool to search by Mass that starts after a given time or before a given time. You can look by parish name or by the city, by the days of the week. So there's a lot of different filters that are available.
You can find the search tool at dioceseofraleigh.org/services.
Monday, January 18th, the Amen Ministry of the Diocese of Raleigh, along with the Peace and Justice Department, will be hosting our annual Martin Luther King Peace and Justice Mass. It'll be at the Cathedral starting at 10 o'clock. We will be, as a service project, collecting diapers of any size, full packages for Catholic charities.
That was Tristan Evans, coordinator of the Amen Ministry for the Diocese of Raleigh. The Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Day Mass and Diaper Drive is an annual tradition that celebrates and honors the civil rights work of King and of those who stood with him.
What was beautiful about that whole movement, it was a group of, it started off with 6, but then they added on some other individuals, and one of those individuals is actually from the Catholic Church. So, the Catholics were along the way there as well. Since we have a heavy or a nice size African-American community within the Catholic Church, we thought it would be important for those people who may have been living, during that time, and us who are benefactors of that movement to continue to celebrate within the church this important day. And for peace and justice, definitely to always remember that whenever there's injustice in the world, we are in that fight as well with our brothers and sisters, irregardless of who they are.
The Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Day Mass, as well as the Mass for Life on January 16th, will be streamed live on the Diocesan YouTube channel. Go to dioceseofraleigh.org for more information. Now you're up to date for January 2021. From the news desk of Carolina Catholic Digest, I'm Mark Height.
Thank you, Mark. Now we welcome to the program Deacon Josh Klickman. He's the Human Life and Dignity Coordinator for the Diocese of Raleigh. Deacon, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
So first, tell us a little bit about you. You are recently installed as a deacon. Is installed the correct word?
Ordained, yeah. Ordained as a deacon,
Ordained
yeah.
as a deacon, I'm sorry.
Okay,
And tell us a little bit about your role of becoming a deacon, why you chose to become a deacon. And you've got a really fascinating life story prior to that. So just tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, so obviously I was born and raised in Portland, Oregon. I wasn't really raised with a lot of religion per se. I was baptized Episcopalian as a baby, though, but we didn't really go to church. I became an atheist as a teenager. And then when I joined the Army in 1995, I was in the infantry. I went to a mass. By then I was a born-again Christian, but I wanted to become a Catholic. And then about 2000, after my first mass, then in 2002, I actually did the formal process of entering the church. So I was actually, I made my profession of faith in 2002. And that was really when the call to the diaconate, I guess, started making itself known to me. I'd heard about the diaconate and I thought, this is a cool idea. I feel called to that. And it was years later when I was in spiritual direction, about 2011, 2012, something like that. My spiritual director had recommended it. And by that time, I'd actually written it off because there weren't any deacons in military parishes or military communities. So I kind of put the diaconate off to the side. And another thing is I thought it was maybe a little bit of a bad answer to the shortage of priests. I mean, my formation or my director had corrected me on that and said, no, it actually strengthens all of that. So then when I looked at what it means to service, I was like, well, this is a call I did feel initially. So, and I would say even when I was younger, I felt this kind of call to doing things like that, service to others and such. anyway, so that I say that's where my call started, and then it really formed, about just over 10 years ago. So then I started looking into the diaconate, started the process. I think it was 2014 when our class started. And so, yeah, I was just ordained this past summer. So about 6 months now, I've been a deacon.
Well, congratulations on that.
Thank you.
And thank you so much for your service to our country too. Now tell us a little bit about your professional role now as the Human and Life and Dignity Coordinator. How long have you been in that role, and what does that mean?
Yeah, so I am the Human Life and Dignity Coordinator for the Diocese of Raleigh. I've been in the role almost 2 years now. That was when I was transitioning out of the military about 2 years ago. This job came open, and I had completed a master's in theology from Franciscan University my last couple years in the military, and I was looking for a job in a parish as a DRE or something like that. But this job came open to be the Human Life and Dignity Coordinator. So I work for the Office of Evangelization and Discipleship. Our boss, our director, Amy Daniels, works for the bishop. And our mission is to equip Catholic leaders for evangelization and discipleship by resourcing, training, and supporting collaboration, stuff like that, and communicating. And since the parish is the center of activity for religious activity, really, what I do is I maintain relationships with people in parishes that do human life and dignity. Just an hour ago, I was on the phone with a lady in Pinehurst she's a religious, she does faith formation, but she's also a social worker by background. And of course, human life and dignity are areas that she's constantly working in.
What does that mean? Kind of
Okay.
what and I'm sorry to kind of belabor,
No, you're good.
but what falls under your jurisdiction? What do you focus on?
Yeah, I was thinking about saying that next. I thought maybe I was talking too long, but yeah, the very next thing I was going to mention on there was that there are about 50 topics. I had the same question when I saw the job, Human Life and Dignity. I Googled Human Life and Dignity, USCCP, and there's a list of over 50 topics. But the main ones that people talk to me about are abortion, economic justice, poverty, pro-life issues, racism, reproductive technology, the death penalty, and the environment. Those are the big issues. I also manage grants, which I think is something that people don't know, but I am pushing that this year to make people aware of the fact that there is money available from a lot of sources. So not even just Raleigh money, but this is money nationally that's coming out of other places, not even North Carolina, for anything to do with human life and dignity. And really, when you think about our mission of encountering people on the margins, all of that's human life and dignity, whether some of it's charity. And I would say the Catholic Charities obviously deals with the charity, which is giving people that the love that comes directly from us, feeding people and stuff. Where mine, I think, is a little more focused on justice, which is correcting the systems that cause poverty and such in the first place. And obviously, one of the biggest injustices of our time is Roe v. Wade, that allows abortion to be legal, and that's an extreme injustice to the legal killing of another human being. So that's an obvious justice issue. Whereas charity on that side would actually seek to directly give assistance to a woman who's considering abortion. So that would be charity. But the justice on this issue would be eliminating the legislation that makes abortion legal in the first place.
And it's important to note that we do focus as Catholics on both those sides, on both the justice and the charity. I think a lot of times people will try to put Catholicism or Catholic views into a very soundbite or into a sentence that doesn't encompass the whole of the belief, and it's very intricate, and there are a lot of facets to our belief on life and dignity. And we're definitely going to spend a lot of time speaking specifically to that, because January is the Sanctity for Human Life month. Did I say that properly?
Yeah, it's one of the many months, one of the many things we do to that mark that we do stuff for life. So October is Respect Life Month, so we do have October for that. But yeah, January, because it's the anniversary of Roe v. Wade, which is actually, I think, a question that's coming up. It is the anniversary of Roe v. Wade, so that's a special time to pray and to fast, and actually to seek justice, which is sort of a political demonstration against injustice structures in society.
Absolutely. So I'm looking forward to getting a lot of information and details on that. Before we get there, though, kind of a retrospective on 2020, because all of the issues you mentioned, they were front and center, from how we deal with health, how we deal with respecting one another, where the way that people's opinions and beliefs varied on so many things. And obviously racism was just a huge issue that came up in 2020. There were so many aspects of everything that you brought up in 2020. How did that year and the pandemic and everything that happened affect how you looked at your job, if it did?
Yeah, I mean, it certainly affected my job. I would say on the one hand, my mission being to resource train, collaborate, and communicate. Well, that's done by phone and email anyway. So that didn't change. So I'm still able to assist with all of that. So my job is obviously moving along steady. There's never going to be a lack of work no matter what. But on the other hand, human relationships are central to my job, and we need to have face-to-face contact with other people to do this. We need to, like, I think it was Pope Francis that said, waste time together in a way where it's not, we don't have an agenda, but we just need to spend time together drinking coffee and talking, or doing whatever. And the pandemic has certainly obviously affected that. And again, just like, for example, this morning, some of the work I've done already was a lady who's going to become a human life coordinator in her parish was asking me questions. That wouldn't be over the phone or over Zoom. That would be over a cup of coffee. We would waste some time together and get to know each other. And that is really essential. Also, I would say, as you mentioned, the pandemic has exposed a lot of the problems with justice in our world. I mean, we see record profits for some people on the one hand. I myself, as a retired military guy, I'm doing fine. So some people are doing fine, and some people are seeing record profits, and other people who never thought that they would be struggling are now struggling to even keep a roof over their head or where they're going to find a meal. I hear a lot of that, especially from the coordinators in the parishes. They're just bombarded with people calling for assistance for rent or looking for food. So that the charity, again, is that direct response saying, here's some food, but the justice part is looking at it and saying, why is the system allowing some people to thrive and some people to be left out as if they're not worth. So it's an assault to the human dignity, because in the beginning of the scripture, it tells us we're made in the image and likeness of God, and nobody deserves to be treated like less than a human being. So
Absolutely.
pandemic exposes a lot of that, and a lot of also with the environment, we see a lot of interesting things with that, because on the one hand, we see that we could live with less. They've seen record numbers of pollution dropping, like in places like India, because we don't need to use as much. But on the other hand, you can see other problems with the environment.
What do you see as the greatest threat to human dignity today?
Yeah, that's really the big question. I think the best way to summarize the greatest threat is a term that means a lot of things, but it's the culture of death. That's the biggest threat to human dignity, is just to see how we have a culture of death. And for anybody who's listening who has done a Marian consecration according to St. Louis de Montfort, this is also similar to the spirit of the world that he talks about. So the threat to human dignity is our denial of the supreme dominion of God, and this manifests in practices of sin and disobedience. So those are really, I think, the key are our disobedience and not allowing God, not living by the law of God. And so this manifests into the spirit of the world, or the culture of death, pride of life, and disobeying God's laws. And I would say a lot of people like to point to a time and say, when did we start this culture of death thing? And I think a lot of people might say the 1960s or something like that. But then you look at that and it's like, well, what about the 1920s? Those weren't much better. And who raised the people in the 1960s? And you keep going back and back and back. And it's like, well, actually, you find it right in the beginning of the scripture, right there with the devil lying to us about, did God say not to eat of any of the fruit of the garden? It's all listening to the lies of Satan. And actually, there's a great quote here. Actually, so I think the best answer to this question was answered in the Second Vatican Council in Gaudium et Spes, and obviously before that. But is it okay if I just read this?
Absolutely. Yes.
Yeah.
No, thank you.
So this quote, I think, that I pulled up to answer this question, and I write this all the time. People, when I communicate with people, I have to draw them back and say, look, the church has long known the answer to this. But so I think the best answer to what is the greatest threat to human dignity was told to us by our bishops, the Second Vatican Council. So the quote is, whatever is opposed to life itself, such as any type of murder, genocide, abortion, euthanasia, willful self-destruction, whatever violates the integrity of the human person, such as mutilation, torments inflicted on body or mind, attempts to coerce the will itself, whatever insults human dignity, such as subhuman living conditions, arbitrary imprisonment, deportation, slavery, prostitution, the selling of women and children, as well as disgraceful working conditions where people are treated as mere instruments of gain rather than as free and responsible persons. All these things and others like them are infamities indeed. They poison human society. They do more harm to those who practice them than those who suffer from injury. Moreover, they are a supreme dishonor to the Creator.
Wow.
So that's my favorite quote. And it's actually a favorite quote too, because you will find it not only in Gaudium et Spes, but it's also written in the Gospel of Life in chapter 3 and in Veritatis Splendor chapter 80. So this is frequently quoted. leads right into, environmental injustice,
Mhm.
racism are often thrown into there as well. So anything that looks as a human being as a means to an end is part of the culture of death or the spirit of the world, and that is the threat.
If you're just joining us, we are talking with Deacon Josh Klickman, the Human Life and Dignity Coordinator for the Diocese of Raleigh. In the most layman terms possible, what do you mean by culture of death? What is I think that is a phrase that a lot of people use. What does it really mean?
I think that's the culture of death is, and again, it goes back to, you can see this with Satan, tempting Adam and Eve. The culture of death is where we see other human beings as objects for our gain.
Mm.
We don't love them because they are in the image of God. So when we don't love another human being the way we're not treating them as they are in the image of God. So that's the culture of death, is seeing everybody as a means to an end. Or seeing,
Gosh.
I wouldn't say mean everybody, seeing some people as a means to an end,
Sure.
seeing some people as worth more or less. And that's really hard for us to shake. It is hard, and I get it. I think in the military, you look at people, a general versus a private, there's a worth there. But to not translate that to their human dignity, to say, yes,
Mhm.
maybe you're worth more, maybe you deserve a nicer house because of the hard work, sure, but does this person deserve to be left out on the street? That's where the culture of death looks at another human being and says they're not worth what we're giving them. And Jesus clearly comes to show us that. I mean, he was totally mistreated, scourged, put on the cross, and died for our salvation. So he shows us it's a weird human response, and Pope Benedict talks about this as well too, but it's the human response sometimes to being loved, is that they attack the very thing that loves them. So Jesus was loving us, and we were attacking him on his way to be crucified.
Absolutely. And oh my goodness, what a hard thing to battle these days. When as you were saying that, the picture became a lot more crystallized for me. And I thought about how often people dismissed others and almost saw them as disposable. And you could take that in any number of ways, whether this person's job or profession didn't matter, or that person's life didn't matter, or if they vote for a different candidate than me, then they don't matter. I mean, you saw it everywhere. You see it everywhere. How can we as everyday Catholics respond to that?
Yeah, I mean, that is the question, but the response is actually simple. Really, it's hard, but it's simple. the spirit of the world is disobedience, and Christ won our salvation through obedience. So I think my answer has been to look to Jesus and ask him to teach me obedience. And the best way for me that I found to do that was to imitate the virtues of Mary and unite my sufferings to theirs, because it's really hard for me to be mad at somebody. And you mentioned an interview you did. I'm sure this is a reality that most people experience when they try to help. You kind of get this euphoria of, like, I'm helping these people, but pretty soon you're gonna see them. I think they're maybe taking this for granted. Like, look, I'm trying to help you, but now you're eating McDonald's, and I don't. So then we start judging them, and But then I look at that little, what I would find an assault, and I think about what Mary had to deal with, even after she had the birth of Jesus, and she presents him in the temple, and Simeon says, and in your heart too a sword shall pierce. Think of these sorrows that Mary had, and think of the sorrows and sufferings that Jesus had, and to think about, there's nothing I've ever gone through, even in war and such, that come even close to that the people that I'm trying to save are trying to kill me. I mean, that's just hard for me to imagine. But when I think about that, the thought about somebody coming over, an undocumented worker posing some kind of a threat, well, so what? I'm supposed to love the way God loves. And so that's such a minor threat compared to what Mary and Jesus, the sufferings and sorrows that they endured. So I would say, so the answer is simple. Since the spirit of the world is disobedience, the answer is obedience, but really love. We can look at that. St. Paul talks about it. The popes talk about it. Mother Teresa talked about it. Really, the answer is love, loving people the way that God loves us. And I think that starts with prayer every day. So starting the day in prayer, frequenting the sacraments, going to daily mass, if as possible, praying the rosary, the divine office. And I would like to say, so speaking of Mother Teresa, who I think she gives us answers, and I think Mother Teresa was about 100% charity, by the way. She really didn't seek justice, and people criticize her for that. But that's fine. Some people, all they do is love, and that's fine. She didn't seek to reform the systems in India or the world. She just loved people, and that's a beautiful thing. But she gave this formula I'd like to mention, a very practical way to to respond to the spirit of the world is through a practice that begins with silence, and silence leads to prayer. So practicing silence in your life is going to take you to a deeper prayer. The more we pray, the more faith we have. When we have faith in God, we see how much he loves us. And this love that we see that God gives us, like St. John, John the Evangelist talks about, that love that God gives us, we have to give to others in service. So that step 5 is service. And once we serve others out of love and because we love them and not for any other reason, that brings us to a deeper sense of peace, which takes us back to the beginning of silence. Because if I have a deeper peace, then I have more time in silence, which leads to prayer, faith, love, service, peace. It's a beautiful cycle. So I think that's how we are called to respond. Put some time for silence in your life, and I think the rest will start revealing itself.
If you're just joining us, we are talking with Deacon Josh Klickman, the Human Life and Dignity Coordinator for the Diocese of Raleigh. That's absolutely beautiful. I thank you so much for that. Silence, I think, is a ignored thing by many of us. I think it's been embraced a little bit after 2020. I do think a lot of people really found some quiet and embraced their prayer life a little bit more. So hopefully we can that's one thing we can keep into 2021 and beyond, that we can kind of embrace that, slow down life a little bit. I know Bishop talked a lot about that as well. Now, to kind of transition a little bit specifically to January and what's coming up. So Sanctity for Human Life, like you said, we talk about the Sanctity for Human Life in January because it is the anniversary of the Roe v. Wade decision. Can you talk about, I think all of our listeners know. I'm going to go ahead and assume that our listeners know what Roe v. Wade is, the consequences of that decision. Why do we still talk about that, though? Why, as Catholics, is that important to us?
I mean, it's an extreme injustice. I know some people would say they get sick of talking about it, but I would say that would be like, we had the same kind of argument around civil rights. People would tell Dr. King, like, look, man, we don't need to seek legislation here. The legislation is a reflection of society, and once we fix society and make society less racist, then the civil rights will just kind of happen. Dr. King didn't accept that. He said, no, we need to seek laws that are just. And this is what the bishops will tell us too. But that's why it is important for Roe v. Wade that this is an unjust law that allows the killing of, absolutely innocent life. So this needs to change. And this is a total manifestation of the culture of death, to say I can kill another human being. And again, nobody in that situation really thinks that's what they're doing. They don't think I'm going to kill a human being in order to save my life. But wherever they get to that, so whatever culture has created the conditions where that's an answer for them, we need to go to that. And one thing the USCCB has done this year, supporting moms in need, walking with moms in need, and so we're supporting a lot of the things around the nation that support life. Because here's the other reality with Roe v. Wade. Even if we do get rid of Roe v. Wade, it's going to go back to the states, and are states ready to repeal abortion? I would say some of the leading organizations like Susan B. Anthony list who study this kind of thing, they would say states like North Carolina, Georgia, Louisiana, places that might make abortion illegal, we're not ready. We don't have the infrastructure ready to support moms. So the answer, what are people doing right now? Today you can go out and do things to support moms in need, because if abortion is going to be made illegal, and hopefully it will be soon, we need to be ready to respond. And I would say we're not ready right now. So that's one of the things we focus on this month, is to pray and using that formula from Mother Teresa. What am I doing to support moms in need? And when I go out there and I find that mom in need and she's refusing some of the care, or she takes some of it and then I think she wastes some of it, but am I going to love the way Jesus loves and continue to press in and to continue to support and love the way Jesus does to us?
If you're just joining us, we are talking with Deacon Josh Klickman, the Human Life and Dignity Coordinator for the Diocese of Raleigh. I think that is such an important distinction and such an important thing to talk about, because I'm sure you've heard it, but there's been kind of a derogatory term thrown around pro-birther, right? Not pro-life, pro-birth, or whatever it is, where people accuse, and I'm sure there are many people, there are some people out there, unfortunately, who say they embrace pro-life and are against abortion, but they are not thinking about the mother. They're not thinking about the reality of the situations. And so I love that you're talking about that. Have you heard that term before? I'm sure you've heard the pro-birther term. And how do we continue to combat that? And you kind of already touched on it, but what are some of the ways that we can, are there specific organizations in addition to prayer that we can support?
Yeah, I mean, I think the best way to do it is to concretely support the charitable organizations that directly help women. We have Birth Choice in Raleigh. Most cities have some kind of what we call like maternity centers or pregnancy centers that support women who need help. And the big one I think in North Carolina is Room at the Inn, and it's a little bit outside of our diocese, but they serve the entire state and women from all over the nation. But a place where women can actually go and say, look, I don't want to have an abortion, but I have nobody's supporting me.
Mhm.
Will you guys support me? So supporting these, or even looking at open your own. I get contacted by people all the time who are like, who say exactly what you said. Like, look, Josh, I would like to do this pro-life stuff, but I don't want to just make it illegal and walk away. I want to actually set up a center down the road from a lot of these people that talk to me are like nurses or whatever, and they would actually like to get involved. Of course, there's a lot of work to do, but it is work that we need to do, that needs to be done. So supporting these kind of centers, and again, I can connect people, but that's hard work. It is really hard work to continue to do that.
That's fantastic. Thank you. And something that I hope everyone continues to listen to and pray on, because I think like you said, it's a holistic. We have to have a holistic view of this in order to do it right. If you're just joining us, we are talking with Deacon Josh Klickman, the Human Life and Dignity Coordinator for the Diocese of Raleigh. Specifically speaking to the legislative side, it is traditionally the month where we do the March for Life and the Mass for Life. Is that still going to happen this year? What is that going to look like?
Yeah, I'll start with the one in Raleigh. So we've been blessed actually in North Carolina to have some local events. Not all the states have that, and we're not even that Catholic of a state number-wise or percentage-wise, but we've had this march in Raleigh, which the North Carolina Right to Life, Dr. Pincus, he's the president, him and I talk all the time. They've been running that for decades, so thank God for them. So they've been doing this March for Life in Raleigh. And then we have also done a Mass for Life in Raleigh in conjunction with that. So the 16th of January this year, and so at 11 o'clock on the 16th of January is going to be the Mass for Life at the cathedral, and the rosary starts at 10:30. So we'll do a Rosary for Life at 10:30. It's going to be bilingual, Spanish and English. And then 11 o'clock is the Mass for Life at the cathedral, and then we have to drive about 10 minutes away to Bicentennial Plaza. We're at 1 o'clock. The rally is going to begin, and it'll go to about 3 o'clock. 1 to 3 o'clock will be the rally and the March for Life, and that's at Bicentennial Plaza. The gathering is going to start around 12:30. There's always a little bit of an issue there because we're going from the Mass to the March, and a lot of people at the March aren't even Catholic, so they're not going to go to the Mass. So there's a lot of coordinating there that needs to be done. But yeah, basically, just plan for the 16th from 11 till 3, or actually even before that, 10:30. The Rosary starts at 10:30, so don't forget that. That wasn't previously published. It was always something that was done was 10:30 Rosary, but it was never. I didn't see it written anywhere, so I started writing it in. Rosary starts at 10:30. So.
All right, good to know. And should people bring masks? Should people they need to RSVP? What do people need to know about that?
Well, yeah, absolutely. As per the exhort from North Carolina governor, masks and face coverings must be worn indoors at all times, and when in crowds within 6 feet of someone. The North Carolina Right to Life has published this as well, and also on the flyer that I put out, I've made sure that's written at the bottom that we must wear masks and distance. The cathedrals, they've been running masses, so they're already, they got the sections roped off. Of course, masks are required indoors there, and then also with the march, we're walking in a crowd, so we should all be wearing masks. So always dress warm too. Bring some warm clothes. It's looking like it's going to be. Well, we can't quite predict the weather that far out, but it's usually a little bit cold and a little bit rainy. So, but the North Carolina is. Yeah, comfortable shoes. It's not a long walk, maybe a mile or something like that. And also, so I guess for the North Carolina perspective of this, it's not going to be a lot different than it has in year past. Unfortunately, the breakfast is not going to happen this year for the North Carolina Right to Life. So they actually, that's a huge funding event for them as well. So if anybody is profiting and they would like to contribute, North Carolina Right to Life could use a little bit of extra funding this year because they haven't been able to do as many fundraisers. But this is one of their events, but they won't be able to do the breakfast this year. But other than that, it's going to go mostly as it has in years past with social distancing in Raleigh. So it's important to say that the Raleigh events are going to happen the way they have generally happened.
If you're just joining us, we are talking with Deacon Josh Klickman, the Human Life and Dignity Coordinator for the Diocese of Raleigh. That's fantastic to know. And now, is there a national event this year?
Yeah, so on the other hand, the national is going to happen almost nothing like it's ever happened, right? So the only thing that's kind of unchanged with the national events in D.C., which is I think on the 29th, it's that Friday. Yeah, the 29th. So the national events are going to go The march is going to be, I think, kind of the same, and they're going to have a rally and a march. So anybody who wants to go attend a march and a rally, yeah, it should still be kind of the same. As it would in any other inauguration year, which is a week after the normal. It should be like on the 22nd of January is when we try to normally do it. But in election years, same with when President Obama, and I did that march with my family as well. It was always a week later. So it should go as normal, the march and the rally. However, for those people that, like myself, who would have attended the vigil the night before at the cathedral, which is like tens of thousands of people, it's gone from like, 20, 30,000 people gathering at the Basilica in DC to 150, I think is the latest. They said 150 people, which is like the bishops and their assistants, right? So some bishops and some bishops' assistants are going to be there, but it'll be televised. So that's a national event. So most of that stuff will still be televised. And so what we're really encouraging, and the USCCB has really been trying to encourage this as well, are local events. And it's cool because Raleigh, we'll just do our local events as normal. But some parishes are taking this opportunity to have like Eucharistic adoration on the 29th, to have a rosary, to have special events on that Friday. And we probably should have been doing this anyway. And some parishes have been, like St. Brendan the Navigator has always ran its own local pro-life events out in Shallotte. Other parishes have always done local pro-life events where they'll stand around the parish with signs as cars drive by, respect life and such. Rosaries, adoration, a little walk around. So I would encourage any parish, since it would be local, you wouldn't have to really do anything to just clear it with your pastor and work with your pastor to have a local event. I think that's a beautiful thing anyway, because a lot of people can't make the national event. Here's what I tell people too, is like, if you can't get your church to do something, to do some kind of an event, if your parish doesn't have that energy to do that event, what are we going to do to get rid of Roe v. Wade at the national level? We have to start with that parish. The parish is the center of activity. So going to a national march is a great thing to do, but these need to be happening at the local level if we're ever going to, get rid of abortion and build a culture of life.
Is there anything else that we didn't touch on, or anything that you'd like to talk about?
Well, one other thing I share, because, and we talk around it a little bit, but, there's a lot of politics in this, and that's why that's why it is such a divisive thing, is that we have two major political parties, and one is on one side on some issues and the other is on the other side of some issues, and people identify more with their political party, and that's partisanship. So we kind of need to get rid of that as much as we can and just focus on the life issues. But I respect the fact that some people are going to be devoted to their political party, and that's fine. But the one thing I would tell people that I think would really help us is to don't disparage the other people that are working in life issues. And that's what this is how the culture of death really, really works, is for somebody to say, well, you're so focused on stopping abortion and you're not even worried about the migrant. That's not how we're not going to build a culture of life, by making an opposition like that, or the other way around. Like, all you care about is getting rid of this wall and you don't even care about the unborn baby. I mean, this is all just Satan talking, I think, in our ears. I would say don't worry about it. Some people only have time and energy to work on sidewalk counseling, and they don't have time to spend in soup kitchens or getting rid of homelessness. That's fine. Work in the issue, work where you're at, but don't disparage. We don't need to disparage other parts of it. But a lot of the people that are less involved, I think, are the people that do more of that disparaging, where they're not really doing a lot, but then they criticize the people that are. So that's part of the culture of death too, just to cast shade on people or to criticize people, and that's not productive.
No,
that'd be my last thought. Yeah, is to not disparage. So you might see an issue and maybe you don't fully agree with it, like the death penalty or migration. We can't all be experts, just trust the people that are working the issue and work the issues that are important to you, but don't disparage the other issues.
I think that's very wise and beautiful words to end on. Thank you so much, Deacon Josh, for being with us today.
All right, thank you.
Now, for our service spotlight. Daniel Altano is the Director of Communications and Disaster Services for Catholic Charities for the Diocese of Raleigh. Thank you so much for being here, Daniel.
Thank you for having me. I'm really happy to take some time to speak with you.
And now you could talk about all sorts of things that are going on with Catholic Charities, but today we're going to hone in on a pet project of yours, something that you're very passionate about, which is the North Carolina Catholics Volunteer Program. Can you tell us about what that is?
Sure. So the NC Catholics Volunteer Program, or NCCV, is a program that got started in 2016, and it's a collaboration between Catholic Charities of the Diocese of Raleigh, the Knights of Columbus here in North Carolina, and the Diocese of Raleigh. And what we do is we work to provide volunteer opportunities for community members to come out and work on repair and rebuild projects for homes damaged by the recent disasters of Hurricane Matthew and Hurricane Florence.
So it sounds a little bit like a Habitat for Humanity. Is that a fair comparison?
Absolutely. The program is set up very similar to the way Habitat for Humanity operates, and they're a great partner of ours. There are a lot of great repair and rebuild ministries that operate here in North Carolina, and we all work collaboratively together to bring the homes that have been damaged back to livable conditions.
And it's just been, I mean, it's been hit after hit the past couple years for y'all. I know that Catholic Charities work so hard throughout the entire state, obviously the entire diocese, but it seems like the coastal region has really been affected and impacted incredibly hard with these hurricanes. Can you talk just a little bit about what you've seen over the past couple years?
Absolutely. North Carolina had gone a little while without a major storm. And then in 2016, we had Hurricane Matthew come and really give us the first taste of a large scale disaster. And we jumped in, did everything that we could, started making partnerships and really collaboratively trying to serve the overwhelming need that existed in the community. And as we were making progress there, we then saw Hurricane Florence come through our area and cause similar, if not more, destruction in many areas. One of the things that was a silver lining from that is there are a lot of lessons learned and relationships that have been built following Hurricane Matthew, that when an even more impactful storm of Hurricane Florence came through, we were in a better position to respond. And that made a very big difference in how quickly we were able to help families and how effectively we were able to help them. And part of that was NC Catholics Volunteer. We had that started following Hurricane Matthew in 2016, and we're able to rely on a few of the volunteers through that network to be early responders during Hurricane Florence.
And this is really literally fixing broken homes. This is going to where damage is the worst, where people need it the most, and volunteers go, they sign up for a weekend. Is that correct? So there's a list of weekend opportunities on the website, and do volunteers just sign up per weekend and they commit that time? Tell me a little bit what that looks like.
Absolutely. So yes, their volunteers are going to be on construction sites. The houses that they'll be working on will be in a variety of conditions. Unfortunately, we have some homes that are still stripped down to the studs and really need everything to go back in. And then we've got other homes that are further along that may need more finishing touches like paint and drywall and things like that. And so volunteers who are interested in supporting this effort can go to our website, catholiccharities.raleigh.org/NCCV, and all of the volunteer opportunities are listed there. We've got multi-day trips that are Friday, Saturday, Sunday, scheduled for the Tar River Deanery, and specifically Tarboro in the Tar River Deanery. And then we have single-day trips scheduled for the Cape Fear Deanery, and that's in the Wilmington area. And so there's more information about what kind of projects people work on there, more details about what to expect, all on our website. And people can also reach out to me with specific questions before signing up if they have any questions or concerns.
Fantastic. Now, a lot of our listeners are probably thinking, I've never built a home. I haven't put up drywall. Will someone walk them through this process? Can people who don't have a background come out and volunteer?
Absolutely. We really see this as a positive experience for everyone involved. Our first goal is to help the survivors that need to get back into safe and stable housing, but it can also be a growing and learning opportunity for volunteers. So on our website, front and center, it says we encourage people of all experience levels to come out and participate in these projects. We make sure projects are balanced with more experienced volunteers so that they can provide guidance on the projects that need to happen and make sure that proper safety protocols are followed throughout the weekend or the day of the trip. So if you know what to do or if you're looking to learn, the only thing we require is a positive attitude and a flexible attitude to deal with the day. Everything else can be taught and instructed and helped throughout the volunteer project.
That's phenomenal. Now you bring up safety, and I'm sure always in the past there's the safety things where you're watching to make sure no fingers get cut off or heads get bonked. But this year there's an added level that you've got to think about with any group project. Talk to us about some of the pandemic and COVID-19 precautions that your teams are taking.
Absolutely. So the first thing that we've reduced the number of volunteers that can participate on a specific project. Prior, we used to have up to 15 or 20 people come out on a weekend and go to various service sites. Unfortunately, now we have reduced that down to a maximum of 10 people participating, including the volunteer leadership. So the groups now become smaller, which limits how much we're able to accomplish, but make sure that we are keeping the people that are there safe and can keep the program running. Additionally, we have personal protective equipment, PPE available. So we've got face masks for people to wear throughout the day if they don't have their own to bring. We have hand sanitizer throughout the day. And then for the multi-day trips where people are staying over, we have households stay in separate rooms and really spread out so that even for the overnight trips, we're making sure people are protected and stay safe.
That sounds phenomenal. And I know that Catholic Charities just goes above and beyond to ensure safety of all kinds. So I know I'd feel perfectly safe. This is something I'm looking forward to signing my family up for. Can you go as a family or as a group of friends? Like, can you get a group together and go to one of these projects?
Absolutely. We love when groups come together. It's a lot of fun to have a few people from the same family or bring friends. We really want as many people volunteering as possible. There is such a high need still in the community, and we've been blessed here in North Carolina to have many out-of-state groups for the past couple of years come down and participate in repair and rebuilding projects with some of the other ministries that operate. And unfortunately, those trips have had to be postponed due to the COVID regulations. So we're really seeing a severe drop in the number of volunteers here in our state. So if you're interested in it, we'd love for you to come. And I also encourage all of our volunteers, after they have a good experience, that they can't just come back themselves alone next time, that they have to invite one or two other people with them, because we really want to expand how many homes we're able to work on and get these families that some have been waiting 4 or 5 years now since Hurricane Matthew. And we expect the same kind of length, if not longer, for some of the Hurricane Florence families.
Well, it sounds absolutely phenomenal, just like all of the work that Catholic Charities does. And you had mentioned it already. You go to the website. There are lots of dates all the way through April, I think, that are already listed, or even beyond that.
So originally we scheduled through April, and now we've actually had our schedule set through June of 2021.
That's phenomenal. So I want everyone who's listening to check that out. Find a weekend. What a fantastic project. What a way to travel. If you have no other way to travel, that's a good way to at least get out of your four walls and see something else and really contribute. Now, if there's someone listening who says, absolutely, I can't do it. I just can't lift a hammer anymore. It's just not in my wheelhouse. Can I contribute another way? Is there a way for someone to help out and possibly donate or spread the word? What can people do outside of specifically going to these weekend projects to help you guys out with this?
Absolutely. Well, there are a couple of things. First is, even if the construction aspect isn't in your wheelhouse or what you feel comfortable with, there are other ways individuals can participate in these trips. One of the things with the multi-day trips is that we do need to feed volunteers and have shared meals during the trips. And so we're always looking for volunteers that are willing to help with that. We do 3 meals that Catholic Charities provides, where we'll provide the groceries, but we do ask the volunteers themselves to prepare those meals. And so it's always helpful if there's someone that's willing to have that be their focus, and then can help with other smaller projects around the site without actually having to maybe swing a hammer or do something that they're not comfortable with. So if you feel called to do this, but maybe not sure that the construction aspect of what you want is what you want to do, absolutely still feel free to reach out and we might be able to find a spot.
Phenomenal. Is there anything I didn't touch on or anything you needed to add, Daniel?
No, this has been really helpful. One of the big things, we are trying to expand the NC Catholics Volunteers Program. It had been a little bit of a smaller project, and now we're really on solid ground. And so we really need as many volunteers as are interested to go ahead and sign up. That is the biggest thing holding us back at this point, is just volunteer participation. As we get trips filled up and see that there's interest, we'll go ahead and schedule more volunteer trips. We just need that volunteer time there to make a difference in these families' lives.
Fantastic. Everyone listening, go sign up. You'll see me there. Thank you so much for being with us today, Daniel.
Thank you for having me.
Before we go, as we celebrate Catholic Schools Week, I just wanted to send a quick thank you to the teachers and administration, not only at my kids' school, but at all the schools around the diocese. You are truly making a difference, and the work that you've had to do to keep kids in the classroom as much as possible is nothing short of heroic. Thank you so much. Thank you also to Daniel and to Deacon Josh for being part of the program. Most of all, thank you for giving us your time and for listening today. I'm Mandy Howard. I wish you a joyful new year, and until we meet again, may God hold you in the palm of his hand.
This has been Carolina Catholic Digest. It is a production of the Catholic Diocese of Raleigh, which is solely responsible for its content. Our show is produced and hosted by Mandy Howard. Mark Height is assistant producer and editor. Our supervising producer is Anjanette Wiley. To share your comments or suggestions on this program, please email mandy.howard@raldioc.org. That's mandy.howard@raldioc.org. For more information on any of the stories you've heard, visit our website, dioceseofraleigh.org. For Carolina Catholic Digest, I'm Mark Height. Thanks for listening, and God bless you.